Welcome to 247 Real Talk. I'm your host, Julian Perry, and it's a pleasure to be here with you again for the 251st episode of the 247 Real Talk podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed the 250th episode. I got a lot of feedback. Shout out to everyone who reached out, so congratulations with words of support and wisdom. I am forever grateful as I continue this journey and everything that it requires out of me and out of you and out of us together. I thank you for your prayers, for your support. I thank you for existing subscribers, for new subscribers, and for all of you out there who are even thinking about it. Do come aboard, join us, and share this journey with us. As usual, I give a quick update. My progress continues at my right knee as I recover from total knee replacement, and my left knee continues to deteriorate towards eventual replacement. That's about enough about me and my knee issues. As I thought about what we're going to talk about this week, I realized a lot of people are reaching out to me about a topic that I haven't spoken about in a long time because it has reared its head again with new complications, and that is, encouraging students to go to college and student loan debt. So sit back, relax, and we're going to chat a bit about that. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Let's get this show on the road. It's going to be, I hope, a short one. It's about 10:56 p.m. as I look down here. I don't have my clock that I usually have behind my camera for me right now because as we continue to build out my new office/studio in the lower level of the home, there's a need to cut power today, so it kind of resets all those electronic clocks. So student loans. Well, let's talk about education first of all, and debt, student debt, what it's costing. I have been having about 2 to 3 weeks of conversations with a good friend of mine whose daughter is of age, and she has been going through, she submitted her application, she's been going through her acceptances and trying to make a decision for September of this year where she'd go to college. She is very academically inclined. She did well in school, and so she's applied to probably a dozen colleges, and I think she's probably get accepted by all. So she used a personal preference, and he came to me for advice, because I went through that process myself, not with child, but with myself. And I kind of tried to steer him in the direction of what she wanted to study. Yes, your desire to be at a certain college, but what truly offers the best education you can get for the value it actually adds to your life later on. Let me preface that by saying, while my 2 master's degrees made me eligible to apply for a lot of positions as I went through my career higher and higher, I was just lucky enough to be part of a system that ultimately got my student loans forgiven. But I would have been under crippling debt at that point. And what's crazy about it is, as I was speaking to my friend, his daughter, he has family, he lives in New York, he has family in California, and she seemed dead set on going to UC Davis in California when she got accepted. She went out there, she saw the university, she fell in love. For the first year, they were treating her, this is the offer, as an out-of-state resident. I think he said, I'm trying to get this right, with boarding and everything, the tuition for the first year was going to be $72,000. That's mind-blowing. He broke it down to me for boarding, lodging, and whatever. And I really don't want to scroll back and look through his numbers right now, but it was north of 50,000 for the tuition alone. I think it was like, or maybe a little less. Maybe it was like 20. Let's say 50, 20. That made up the total. And I thought back to when I first started college. And if I remember correctly, if you went to a semester full-time tuition, anywhere from 12 credits and beyond, I think it's either 12 and beyond or 12 to 18, was, I'm sorry, my allergies are killing me tonight, as usual, was $3,900 a semester. So if you went 2 semesters, or even did summer semester, you were at 9 threes, 27, so you're at 11.7, something around $12,000. Let's round it off for the year. So a 4-year bachelor's would have been $48,000. That's not even one semester at UC Davis. And the $3,900, let me make sure I say this correctly, because the $3,900 is not boarding and lodging. That was just tuition. So we're comparing tuition to tuition now. I mentioned to him that since he's in New York, he should consider a CUNY or a SUNY school, since State University of New York they're pretty good colleges, good university, good collection of schools. He was doing all sorts of things. He was about to do mortgages and sell property, and then he didn't listen to me for a while. He never does in the beginning. And then he said, guess what? About 2 days ago, his daughter got a full ride to SUNY, Stony Brook in New York, full scholarship. She still wants to stay on campus, which I believe more has to do with wanting independence from her parents because she lives at home now. But that will cost him $18,000 a year. If he wants to pay that as his child, that's fine. I personally think that they should practice the art of a grown woman daughter, 18 or 19 years old, to give her the respect or freedom she needs, still being a parent, of course, and buy her a car. I think after the first year, it will pay for itself. But he's going to pay the $18,000 a year so she can live in Stony Brook and I guess experience dorm life. I never did. I never lived on campus, and I'm not sure I regret it. It's hard to encourage the youth these days to go to college. One of the things that someone else contacted me about to bring to my awareness, but I already had heard on the radio, is, you remember we had those Biden years where he did everything with his Department of Education to forgive as many loans as he could. Then the moratorium was over, and now we're hearing that so many people coming out of COVID, losing breadwinners, inflation, losing their jobs. Maybe they even worked for the federal government and lost their job under this administration. Now their loans are in default. And the Department of Education is going to start going after them hard. Now, understand that if you are a 2-parent household, and I've met many, many people who have 2-parent households where the parents met on the job, federal government, so they both work for the federal government. One lost their job. Both are now in default for their student loans because one person had to take on the bills of both. Now they're going to garnish the check of that one, breadwinner, and the other one lost their job, not because of anything else, but something called Doge. And the thing is, there was no real, as we all heard, there was no real one-on-one evaluation process of the value of this person's job and their performance, and if they could be reassigned to a different, reassign resources, redeploy resources in areas where they have skill sets that could be used to sort of balance things out. Because you can't tell me that every single department everywhere in the federal government had a surplus. There had to be places like everywhere else in government where people are struggling for resources, and there may be someone else who you found a surplus in one area but a deficit in another, that it can work. But that's not what happened here, right? Tens of thousands of people just lost their jobs. And so The one thing that should be free across this country for every single citizen of the United States is turning out not only to be damning, but the one thing that can ruin your life, even in the latter stages of your life, where you're looking forward to enjoy whatever years you have left on this earth. As I mentioned before, there are many countries around the world that offer free education, at least to a bachelor's, for its citizens. And a bachelor's, understand these days, while it's of course an accomplishment, in today's job market in the United States, a bachelor's does not necessarily make you competitive for the higher ending jobs, right? The higher level jobs. You've got to have more than a bachelor's, along with experience, along with a great resume, along with so many other things. And in the cases where people like you and me, women, LGBTQI, people of color, would go into a playing field for a job and be dismissed because of the color of our skins or gender or sexual orientation, whatever the case may be, we had something that leveled the playing field so that we had to be considered for our merit. And that was DEI. DEI in this application made sure that someone could not dismiss me for something that had nothing to do with merit. The current administration says, well, we're getting rid of DEI because you should be hired on your merit. Obviously, they don't understand that part of the implementation of DEI was because so many people were not being hired because of their merit, but rather because of the color of their skin or all the other reasons I labeled. So we're living in a tough time again. And what these kind of circumstances with tariffs and everything else are, we're staring down a recession, and we're staring down the reemergence of the socioeconomic divide where you're either rich or poor. Those who are struggling need to get ready to dig in to struggle harder. And the fact of the matter is, who do you blame? The current administration is doing what they said they would do if they got into office. We as a society claim to have a certain level of intelligence that's superior to the rest of the world. We're told if you hit the nail on the head with the hammer, it's going to go into the wall. We hit the nail on the head with the hammer, and then we complain because it went into the wall. Think about it. It's hard for me to even get upset with the administration, even though I don't agree with what's going on, because we were told, the country was told, look, if you put this in power, we think it's better for America, but this is what we're going to do. You had a choice. The problem is, people made a choice not based on the facts and what the outcome would be. They made the choice based on gender. They didn't want a female president. They made the choice based on ethnicity. They didn't want a woman of color. They made a choice based on supremacy, on greed, on affluence, and on racism. And what they failed to realize is we can divide and separate to conquer and get who you want. But you know what you're going to be united in? The suffering. Because all of those who thought by making choices not based on what was best for their lives would somehow be best for their lives, hello, wake up. I just saw a video of a guy saying that he belonged to some association across the United States of truckers. And these truckers apparently are mostly Republican. And I'm not, again, please understand, I always say this, I'm coming from an independent perspective. I'm just stating facts. Because the video I saw, these guys are saying, well, yeah, we knew that there'd be tariffs and all of that, but we didn't expect it to affect us. So here's what's happening. Many truckers are independent, self-employed, contractors. And if their trucks are empty, they're not making money. If they're not making loads, they can't pay because most of their trucks are leased or they are an investment that they're paying for. And the way that they pay and pay their bills and pay their mortgages and maintain their family and pay for that new truck that can do these millions of miles in total back and forth across the country, is being able to go to the shipyards and get a container and get an assignment. But there's been a 30-something% drop, as far as I've heard, in the number of ships coming in because of the tariffs. And that translates to less work for the truckers. And now they're complaining. I don't even think they understood what tariffs meant. I heard one guy interviewed, I think I mentioned it before in a previous podcast, who was laughing because, yes, he says, I voted for this, and now they're going to have to pay the tariffs. And then the reporter had to say, no, you have a business, you import, right? He said, yes, you have to pay the tariff. And then you have to figure out how you're going to pass that cost on to your customer, how you're going to balance that cost. And he looked stunned. It's like the first time in his life he understood what he had chosen. So I know the episode started off with student loans, and it is about student loans, but all these things are important because everyone sort of follows conditioning, or not everyone, but the majority of people follow conditioning, right? And even to this generation, people are taught you're born, you go to school, primary school, you go to high school, you go to college, you get educated, you choose your career, sometimes not necessarily based on your college degree, but your college degree is supposed to be a rounded experience that grows you up in many aspects of your life. Social aspects, academic aspects, real world interactions. And you go do that and you're saddled now with ridiculous, I don't understand, first of all, number one, like I said, education should be free in this country, but more so, how do you go from $3,900 a semester to $25,000 a semester? I understand prices have gone up, but I just don't get it. And I don't know if I were going to go to school in this day and age, how I would choose college. I want to sell the idea to many people who are looking up to forwards in life, and what young people that I mentor, and I do mentor a few people on what they should do and what they should become and how they do it. And I try to offer them things like in New York, like CUNY and SUNY, where education is cheaper, because there's no guarantee that when they come out of college that they can afford to pay their student loans. And where do you get, at 21 years old, at 20 years old, at 19 years old, where do you get $25,000 a semester? Not everybody is living in inherited wealth or available wealth. And no one seems to care and understand that what we're doing is destroying ourselves from the inside out. We're beginning to guarantee that the generations to come, if we continue down this path, will be less and less educated, simply because, one, they can't afford it. Two, they have seen the punishment. There would be victims or the recipients or residual impact of student loans, because they would have watched their parents suffer. They would have watched their parents lose their homes. They would have watched their parents go back to work and can't retire. They'll watch their parents work until they get a call one day that their parents died, and if it were not for the death, they would have gotten up and gone to work next day because their parents couldn't stop working. And this is coupled with the fact, and this is people who have spoken to me recently about what has happened to our economy, and while the rich got richer off of that tariff nonsense, how many poor or middle or lower middle income people who worked 20, 30 years to build a 401k lost $300,000 to $500,000 in 2 weeks. How do we convince young people, this generation, generations to come, that education and college is the way to go? And we've seen other impacts with universities around the nation, right? Where if they remain independent and they're not politically partisan, they lose funding, they lose what they are. They lose their personality, they lose their character, because these universities stand out as independent academic institutions. The waters have been so muddied here that everywhere you turn, nothing makes sense anymore. And yet we are to look at the youth and say, follow us. Go to college, get an education. When you're done, you're going to get a good job. How many of you that I look at this camera and speak to tonight feel that you can say that to a young person today and not feel that you're telling a lie, or not feel that you're giving false hope, or not believe exactly the words that are coming out your mouth? I am one of those people that believe I can't say that to someone today, a young person, because if the only way I could say that to them is then say, go to college, get an education. You may need to get more than a bachelor's. You may need to work harder. It may take you longer. You may have to face, indefinite struggles because of your gender, your sexual orientation, the color of your skin. You don't have DEI to help you be seen for the content of your character and your academic prowess. Rather, you just, supposedly under this mirage of what was abolished to call it merit. You live in a society where if things are not reversed, your future is not bright. Your America is not great. Because the things that this country should be offering have just become harder for certain people. How do you look at a young person with all of those factors and convince them that college is the way to go? Moreover, if we are still struggling at our ages, trying to get to that American dream in totality, chasing a dream that seems to be running away from us, what example do we have to offer them that the advice we're giving them makes sense? Something's got to change. I think I've said enough about this, and this is probably one of the shorter episodes, but as I think about it, I want you to think about it. Those who continue to reach out to me, you remember the email address, podcast@247realtalk.net. Let's continue the conversation. We need to separate ourselves and put ourselves in a space where we look out for our young people. We need to come up with ways to fight a system that is working against us, to provide them with options that make sense, that encourage them, that put the belief again in that when you work hard, you go to college, when you've paid that price, there is a rainbow. There is a light at the end of the tunnel that's meaningful, that actually comes with all the promises of the great American dream and the potential if you do this right. Right now, we can't sell that dream. We don't even know what to tell our youth, because besides the dream of education and a future that we know, we don't even have an alternative to offer them. What do we say to them? Go open your own business, be an entrepreneur, and as you push through your choice of industry, get ready to have doors slammed in your face because there's no more DEI. So you're going to pay a penalty because of the color of your skin, your gender, your sexual orientation, just because you're not part of the chosen few. But there is a light. There is a light to the end of the tunnel. God is faithful. I know for many people who are struggling, and I'm one of you, so I'm not speaking, looking at you through a lens. I'm looking at you as in a mirror. People who are struggling, no matter, the more you work, the more you make, the more they take. But remember, stand with me and understand, I always tell you, and I'll say it every opportunity I get, God is faithful. Keep your eyes and your mind and your heart on the fact that you are who you are and you know whose you are. I'm going to keep encouraging you. I'm going to keep thinking and working with people and groups who collaborate to look for ways to help our youth. I would hope that my future on this podcast and everywhere else allows me maybe to create or make an extension of my foundation, the Perry Foundation, that I started in honor of my mother, to be able to maybe offer assistance to people through fundraising, through mentorship, whatever. It's part of sort of my third chapter in my life, the third. So I'm done 2/3. The last third of still making sure that my life has meaning for me, for my children, for my family, and for all those who reached out, all those who I could have reached, and all of you who, as an extension of this podcast, make a similar effort. Let's do this together. We can. We've already shown the country and the world that if we simply took our dollar and decided where to spend it collaboratively, the impact, as of 2 weeks ago, I mentioned to you, was $22 billion lost to Walmart, almost $16 billion lost to Target, an undisclosed amount of billions of dollars lost to Lowe's, and we're just getting started. Identify with who you are, the power of your dollar. Even if they didn't give you the best job when you deserved it, you still have the power as a human being to stand up and be counted. Let's make a difference. As I close this episode, I always remind you of the power of prayer. Those who believe, you know where I'm coming from. Those who are on the fence, you should be leaning now. And those who don't believe and need proof, just look at your lives. Look from within. Look at the world. Look at His Word, and you'll get it. As a little encouragement, I was looking through Bible verses, for something to leave you with. And this week it's short. It's Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen, and I will add, and yet to come. Until the next time, please, thank you so much. Take care of yourselves, and please, take care of each other.